Everyone knows the Pokemon games, from the original red, blue, green and yellow on the Game Boy that has continued to grow through Nintendo's various handhelds, to the various spin-offs like Pokemon Snap, the Pokemon Stadium and Colosseum series, and not forgetting Pokemon Go on iOS and Android. There's been the anime, movies, toys, inappropriate playground inflatables, and of course, the trading card game. You couldn't move for Pokemon cards in the late 90s. Like Beanie Babies before them, we all thought we might get rich off our newest investments. No matter what anyone told you, you just knew that Ancient Mew was going to be worth something someday. The problem the rights holders had was that it's all well and good having a craze on your hands, but while people were loving, trading, collecting the cards, no one actually knew how to play the game. In the short term, that doesn't really matter, but for longevity, they needed more ways of teaching people to understand the rules of the game, and therefore the true value of the cards, not just from a collector's point of view, but in terms of their competition value. To do this, the best method was deemed to be video games. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I loved Pokemon cards when I was a kid, but I had no idea how to play the game. And the notion of a video game based on a card game based on a video game didn't really make much sense to me. In fact, I'm still not sure what I just said was right. And that was the problem. It didn't really make much sense to a lot of people, despite the fact that some of the games were actually really good. In 1998, following on from the success of the first Game Boy games in Japan, we saw the first of the Pokemon trading card games on the Game Boy Color, and this eventually made its way to the West in 2000. It's just a shame that the TV ad tried its hardest to make the players of the game look as socially inept as possible.
Hey guys.
Get out of here, you know how to play.
Introducing the Pokemon trading card game for Game Boy. You can learn all the secrets and strategies you'll need to become a true Pokemon Master Trainer, rated E for everyone.
Ha! A Thunder Punch combined with the paralyzing attack move makes Electabuzz arguably the best all-around Pokemon in the game.
Limited edition card inside. Gotta catch 'em all.
On the surface, this seems a little like a watered-down version of the main series games, and in some ways it is. We take on a character that resembles our protagonist from the Red and Blue or Gold and Silver games, and the aim of the game is to travel from gym to gym, battling trainers and obtaining new cards in order to build an ever stronger deck. Unlike the main series games, however, there's not much of an overworld or storyline. You travel between gyms by simply selecting one on a map. You're then free to challenge whoever you want, including the gym leader. The aim of the game is to collect gym badges and become the ultimate Pokemon card master. The game is actually pretty fun, and it does play like the main series games, albeit mostly battling, but with much greater strategy. Now, also in the year 2000, we saw Pokemon Play It, a set of cards with a 2-player starter set and an interactive CD-ROM that literally demanded you play the game. Interestingly, despite there never being a Dutch version of the original Game Boy games, Pokemon Spielhet was released in Dutch markets. We still see sets like this today, which come with detailed instructions and that take you on a step-by-step guide on how to play the game's basics, minus the CD-ROM, but we'll come on to more modern ways of teaching you to play the game later. In 2001, Japan received a direct sequel to the first Game Boy game, and I mean a direct sequel. It literally starts the game by talking about how you triumphed in the previous one. While this was Japan only, there are fan translations out there, so that it is possible to play it in English. Now, I happen to have, somewhere here it is, a reproduction cart, so I can pop it in the Game Boy player of my GameCube, and we'll get to that in a minute. If you collected the physical cards, you probably wouldn't have been too surprised by this release. Even in the West, there were Team Rocket card decks released which featured underhanded trainer cards and so-called dark Pokemon. And no, I don't mean the dark type Pokemon, that was way before this. I mean things like this Dark Charizard, or this ironically shiny Dark Blastoise. In fact, I also have here an original copy of the Team Rocket Strategy and Card Guide from 1999, which basically just explains certain strategies on how to use Dark Pokemon as opposed to their regular variants. Translations may vary a little, but you may see the game called Pokemon Card 2 Here Comes Team GR, or Make Way for Team Great Rocket. So let's plug it into the GameCube and see what's what. Please choose a gender. Oh, how progressive. I am a boy. Inside and out. You are a boy? I feel like it doesn't believe me. Yes? What is your... Oh. That's not 26 letters. Katakana? Oh great, more letters. That's okay, that could be an M. That looks like it could be an A. That's a T, surely. There! I did it. Okay, done. Oh, hang on, wait, what's in upper? Oh, for f***'s sake! Despite what we know about Team Rocket, that's not actually who are our rivals in the game. They're these hooded figures in kabuki masks. Rather than defeating gym leaders, this time we're saving them, as Team GR has taken over their gyms using their dark Pokemon cards, and it's up to us, as the current champion, and one of the few people left that carry cards at all, to try and take back the gyms from the kabuki twats. Unlike the first game, there's much more of a story to this one, and there's also a post-game in which we board the Evil One's airship to go to their land. Which I'm at least 12% sure isn't a Nazi reference. And we head to a second island, currently under Team GR's control. Not that anyone on the island actually realises they are under the control of an evil superpower, but then again I'm fairly sure that's completely unrelated to any historical European politics. It's a shame that this never made it out of Japan, because it's a great sequel and it's a must-play for anyone who liked the first game, but with a text-heavy game like this, the localization takes a long time. This was released in Japan around the same time as the Game Boy Advance, so it wouldn't have made too much sense going through the effort of localizing it, not to mention that we would have been a bit confused by the masked bad guys, as they don't look anything like the Team Rocket that we know. Following on from the sequel to the first game, Pokemon Play It also got a sequel that was released with the Tempest gift box, or the Thunderstorm gift box in the US. But there was also another CD-ROM that technically wasn't a game. Gotta Make 'em All Pokemon Project Studio promised that you could make your own Pokemon cards, although that was only a half-truth, as all you could do was make vague character cards that looked more like those collectibles from the 90s that had little to no use whatsoever for any gameplay. What's more, it was released in both red and blue versions, so you had to buy both of these pieces of shit if you wanted to collect all 151 Pokemon. While Pokemon Card GB2 never made it out of Japan, there was kind of another Game Boy release in the US. The e-reader was an ill-fated add-on for the first Game Boy Advance, or the Game Boy Player for the GameCube. Now when I say e-reader, don't think Kindle, think more, barcode reader or swiping a credit card, for those who are old enough to remember that. You could buy packs of cards which had codes printed on the side, which, when run through the e-reader, would unlock bonus games in the main series games, like new trainers to battle or exclusive minigames. For example, in this case, my e-reader came bundled with the 3 evolutions of Machop, and it unlocks a minigame in which Machop has to break rocks. It's not exactly riveting, but you could combine various different cards to unlock different minigames. What it didn't do was unlock any trading card games, but of course they could be used as playable cards in their own right. There were also other cards that could be scanned in, and it basically turned your Game Boy Advance into a Pokédex. Or so I assume. I've only got a couple of these cards, and they're not easy to find in the UK. Pokemon card game Asobikata. Asobikata? We going with that one? Yeah, okay. Or in English, Pokemon card game How to Play was a Japan exclusive for the DS, which pretty much dispensed with the whole idea of a storyline and focused solely on being an instructional tool for teaching people to play the card game, with 5 CPU characters to play once you've worked your way through the tutorials. It was released alongside starter sets, which included playing cards and instructional DVDs. Now, I can't find a decent copy of the game in the UK, so I'm going to have to steal some footage from Metal Jesus and ask for his divine forgiveness later.
This is Pokemon, it's called like Pokemon Beginning Cards, or Pokemon Beginner Cards. Someone who speaks Japanese will probably correct me on this, I apologize. But this is a game that teaches you how to play the Pokemon trading card game.
I love all this physical stuff. This is so awesome.
It's so great. We never get anything cool like this in the States. So it comes with the game, of course, and then a bunch of actual Pokemon cards, so you can start battling with your friends with the assistance of the DS kind of teaching you what to do.
Unlike with the Game Boy Color sequel, there's yet to be a decent translation of this game, so I can only show you so much by guessing my way through a barrage of Japanese text. Not surprisingly, you can't get very far unless you can read the language, but to be fair, it says that right on the box of the original first game. It's been a bit of a tradition for Pokemon cards to be released alongside a video game, so that not only are people collecting the cards, but they're learning to play the game as well. But these days, however, we're probably never going to see a game like those on the Game Boy Color again, because there is now the online game. This plays much like the early CD-ROM game, but you are connected to real players around the world, and it also utilises the trading element to much greater effect, as you are able to trade your cards or even unopened a pack with other members. When you buy a pack of cards in real life, you get an extra card with a QR code on it. You can then scan the QR code into the game and it gives you a digital pack of cards to play with. See, the e-reader may have been a flop, but its legacy lives on. The biggest problem with the online version, though, is how much it highlights the drop-off in value of previous generation cards. Whether digital or in real life, some cards are going to be valuable, such as this shiny Charizard. Some may never have really had any value, like this Weedle or this Me. And others, well, they only really have value when they're current and able to be used in competition. Not to mention that as soon as a new series of cards is released, which, let's face it, is quite often, this suddenly becomes the trade bait of choice. But from the Pokemon Company's point of view, it's great. If sales start to lag, don't worry, just bring out a new generation of cards. Problem solved. The trading card game was never really as popular as the main series games. We all collected those little pieces of cardboard crack in the 90s, but how many of us actually played the game? It's a shame because, in many ways, I actually prefer the trading card game, which, incidentally, if you fancy taking me on, you can find me here, and I'll also put my username in the description as well. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little trip down memory lane with some Pokemon cards. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go play the game, maybe break out my Pogs and some Beanie Babies, and pretend like I'm 11 years old again. Until next time, guys, I'll see you later. All joking aside, if you'd like to add me on the Trading Card Online game, then please do so. And hey, if you've got any QR codes that are destined for the trash, then send them my way. I'll make good use of them and maybe even do a digital unboxing, as it were. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.